Hey guys, it's Nicole Eaton with the Rock Your Soul book and podcast, where we talk about how to hack your mindset, grow your intuition, and live your best life. You can support this podcast by subscribing, leaving a positive review, and screenshot and sharing on social media. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Rock Your Soul podcast. This is an absolutely different episode than you've experienced before from me. I did an interview with Nick Brown from the Grounding Yourself podcast, and it's just was a great experience and I wanted to share it with you. There will be two parts to this, the interview he did with me and then the interview I did with him. I'm going to release later this week. But Nick Brown is in the online fitness and mental health space. He is super inspiring and really talks about creating practices to better yourself. So it's a great conversation. But for all my new people who are tuning in and listening every week, thank you for joining us. But this will give you a little insight into me, practices that have changed my life, and how I went from being a traditional mental health counselor to a intuitive therapist. I hope you enjoy.
Why don't we start with just a little bit of a background, where you come from, what do you stand for, what do you do, things like that.
Yeah, so I'm Nichole Eaton. I'm an intuitive therapist. Everyone's like, what does that mean? What does that mean?
Yep.
It's something, I don't want to say I made it up, but I kind of made it up. I have a background as a master's level mental health counselor. I worked at a not-for-profit as a licensed mental health counselor for probably about 4 or 5 years until I started realizing, actually, this is a fun story. Are you ready? Strap in.
Okay. Yep. Let's go.
I was sitting with people and I started to realize that in this really intimate, vulnerable setting where people are just open,
Yep.
you can kind of plug into people on a whole different level than you can when you're going through life in a normal way.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to be so intertwined with people that we would be having a conversation. I'd bring something up and they would be like, did I tell you that? And I'm like, you had to have, obviously.
Right.
But then it started happening so much and so much detail that I would just know about their life. And we were cutting through these barriers where people are resistant because I was picking up their intuition about their energy, about their life,
Okay.
right? So
Yep.
I went to my supervisor and I was like, something's very wrong with me. They were sort of like knowing things about their personal story or their life that they're maybe not telling you. And she was like, actually, yes, that happens all the time. So this is like super against my logic, to be perfectly honest. Like as much as I'm woo-woo, I'm not. I'm very science oriented.
Okay.
I love science. I love understanding why things are the way they are.
Same.
You follow my TikTok. It's a lot of just trying to do manifestation, but explain with the neuroscience aspect why that works.
Yep.
So I started to go on this journey of figuring out, what is intuition? How does it work? Why does it work? Why do I know these things? And it took me to this whole research of quantum physics and energy. So I've got this mental health base where I've learned all the things about the brain, about human conditioning, about, social psychology. But I also now am able to understand their energy, what their energy is saying or producing. And so I realized that when people get really stuck in their lives, their energy is stuck.
Yep.
So when we are able to move energy, and you know this through fitness, right? Is that when
I've been there.
we're able to make changes in people's lives. So what I do now is a form of intuitive therapy. So I use a base of mental health counseling with a intuitive energy. So I can kind of cut through your bullshit of like, hey, you're locked around your heart. Like, what are we closing off to? Or, whatever that is. So we can talk about, and some people call it psychic. I don't like that word. I think that's a very misused word.
They probably have I feel like a lot of people hear the word psychic and you get that like negative feeling towards it right away because you think of everything out there.
So I just teach people how to use their own intuition. We do kind of some traditional counseling. We do some action oriented. I love taking steps towards what you're going to do. I think talking about it is fantastic to an extent, and then we have to move,
Right.
So that's my little story in a nutshell. Is I actually trained with a psychic medium when I was learning how to in my intuition to figure out, why am I picking it up sometimes and not others.
Right.
So yeah, it was really, really interesting, but that's how I
That's
think
pretty
about it.
sweet. So
Yeah.
basically you take, which actually it's funny enough, I've had a couple conversations with very similar where they started off as the traditional side of things. I had a caseworker and she went from regular traditional by the book, so to speak, caseworking to holistic. And the same thing with you, which is more of a natural approach where now you can take that, the study that you had, the book smart of it, and apply your intuition, your energy, and more of a personal level. Like, and I feel like that's a problem for the longest time for me. I didn't want to go to therapy when I first started. Was I didn't want to just sit there and talk to somebody. I just felt like it was just, what's the point, which most people feel like. And I ended up leaving just because I got to the point where it wasn't the right match either. Like the last therapist I had was not a good match. I mean, I was also using it in the wrong way, which is one thing that I learned is you have to obviously be open to not only learning but sharing. You have to actually open and honestly like share. And when I went to therapy the last time, I was going through a breakup and I was just like venting about my breakup. Like my entire therapy session was just about my ex, like not anything to do with my mental health at all. So I went through that, but I thought about going back, and then I got to the point where I worked on energy, on all these things with myself, and I was like, honestly, like I have my own form of like self therapy in a sense. I manifest things, I write things down, I journal, everything like that. And I got to the point where I just didn't need to go back. But a lot of people I feel like have that sort of. I just don't want to sit there and sometimes it almost feels like you're talking to a book in a sense. Like they're not really. It's not really personal, at least in my experience with one of them. It just wasn't. And I've had a couple of friends that even said the same thing where they were just like, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like I'm having a back and forth conversation where they they feel me in a different way. It's more just, I feel like I'm talking to a book. So I really like how you go with your intuition. And it's also crazy that you just kind of started picking up on people's stories on your own
Yeah.
without even, doing that, which it's power of energy.
It is incredible too when you start to dive into people's auras because you can really see what their purpose is and you can see where there's imbalances in their energy. But just on your note of therapy feeling like that, sometimes it really does depend on the person. And I'm all for talk therapy in the sense of like if you needed a good session to
Right.
vent that out, because I believe our thoughts are best served and organized when they're outside of our body, and
Mm-hmm.
then we kind of organize them and put them back in.
Yep.
So I'm a big like proponent of writing, of doing all of that stuff just to get it out of your
Mm-hmm.
person, that energy removed, and then you can kind of restructure it and take action. But with therapists are really trained to just be a sounding board for your, for
Right.
like our training is to repeat it back to you so you can hear it. And that's
Right.
okay, so you're feeling like you're feeling a little edgy right now, or you're
Yeah.
having a hard time with this breakup. So it's really just giving you space to do that. But yeah, I'm a huge action person. I think that we do need to get it out of our body, but then we need to take our power back. And I
Mm-hmm.
think some therapy can promote victimhood
Yep.
and promote staying in this mindset that you are incapable of doing better, feeling better. Like I hated doing formal diagnoses.
Okay.
There are times where that is super beneficial, but there's also this area where people are like, oh, I'm anxious. And that is my identity. And now this is
Yep.
how I live through the world. And I can't go there because I'm anxious, and I can't do that because I'm depressed. So it becomes
Yep.
this crutch of a block for people to pursue their life. I'll tell you that I suffered with real bad depression before I
Mm.
understood it. And
Yeah.
I had a doctor tell me this is genetic. This will be forever for you. Um,
Yep.
it's not. So
Right.
that's
Right.
it's not. It hasn't been in almost a decade. But at the
Oh
time, I
wow.
was like, oh, he's a doctor.
Right.
You
Yep.
know,
That's it. Trust the doctor. Yeah. No, I've been there. I mean, my so very similar with me and my anxiety. Mine's like a two-part thing. Is one, I found my faith with God again, like and all that. So like I fell into that, but also just energy. Like it was a two-part, literally just it was a two-part thing. And people ask me, and I'm like, as simple as it sounds to you, like there's more to it, but to simply put it, I found God and I found energy. And like they go together. And that's literally all it was. Like I worked on healing my energy. I have chakra books, I have aura book, I have all of it. And I started just diving in because I got to the point where, like you said, it was my anxiety was me. Like I wasn't Nick, and I say this all the time. I didn't have an identity. My anxiety, like that was it. That was my life. And I reached that point one night where I had a panic attack where I thought I was gonna die. It was awful. And I got to the point where I just looked up and I was like, hey, I don't want to die right now. Like, what do I have to do to like for you to not take me? Like, I'm not ready to go yet. And the very next morning I got up and it was just like I was a completely different person. And that's why like I know it was the power of God from that, because like nothing else has ever done that for me. And then all of a sudden I just have a panic attack. And then it's like my mindset's completely changed. And I'm like, there's something more to it. So then obviously between God and, faith, and then obviously diving into energy and all of that, I just started learning so much. And I'm like, this is like, it's crazy. Like you go to a friend's house, you come home, you feel a completely different way. Like you feel drained. And it's like, I hung out and had a good time. I didn't do anything. Why do I have like this negative feeling in me? And it's like, oh, because I took negative energy from where I went to, it stored in my body and I got to release it. Like, it's crazy.
I love what you just said, because so prior to like this intuition kicking up for me, I was an atheist. I mean, I literally I hate to say it now, but I would make fun of it all the time. I'm like, religion is ridiculous. Like,
Yep.
And oh, there's big man in the sky. Like I was such an asshole about it.
Same.
And so I always say that I didn't find God, God found me. And I also use that word loosely as a representation of a higher power and energy. But the other thing that I just want to point out is that I appreciate the power of a panic attack, because it shows you that your brain has the ability to make your body act as though it's in danger, even when you're sitting still in the room by yourself. So we know how powerful those thoughts can be to have our body respond as though we're in a total like dangerous setting, like we are getting robbed right now. We've got a gun held to our head, even if it's just us in our room. We know that we can use that brain intentionally to create something new, to create better feelings in our body, to calm our anxiety, to soothe our depression. Like I wrote my way out of depression. I'm diehard about manifestation because I started learning manifestation in the heat of issues with depression. I had just had my first daughter. I was 20 years old. And it was really, really hard. And I learned about manifestation. And so I said, okay, so if I can manifest money and I can manifest cars or trips or whatever, that's the basis of what we're selling manifestation is this material shit. What if I could start to tell my body that it knows how to be calm? And what if I could start telling my mind that it knows how to find happiness? And what if I started to build my confidence through how I speak to myself and how I dedicate myself every single day? Like, what are my thoughts that are making panic attacks? What are my thoughts that are breeding worry? Where did I even learn this stuff from? And so I started to dissect it all. And I wrote my personality out. Who do I want to be? Who am I capable of being? I sat down and, okay, what would I need to believe about myself for this to come true? What would I need to believe? And the beliefs were about, I was, a very insecure person. Like I said, I was a very young mom. We were super broke at the time. Like it was a really challenging time period in my life. And I just, it's like, oh, I'm failing at everything. And oh, I got a master's degree and everything still sucks. Like I got to the big master's degree and it didn't work out in the ways that I wanted it to. And I hated my job at the time because I was working for a not-for-profit. I was making no money at all. And I was helping people, but I was also doing really, really challenging work. And as a therapist and somebody working in those like fields, I know you were saying case workers and stuff, like there is a certain time before you burn out, where you have how I want to help them save the world energy. And then you hit that point where you're like, I can't see another child be abused. I can't sit with somebody who is done really terrible things and try to understand their point of view anymore. Like you kind of lose that compassion fatigue. So yeah, I mean, I preach a lot of manifestation on TikTok, and my upcoming book is a lot on rebuilding yourself and making your comeback. It's called Rock Your Comeback. But I teach manifestation in that, because if you can understand energy and you can understand taking your power back, okay, this shit happened to you. I'm so sorry. But what are we going to create now?
Right.
What do we learn from that? And what are we going to create moving
Yeah.
forward? And then we take our power back.
Yeah. No, I love that you said that. I'm very similar, where I just kind of sat down one day and I started journaling, and I'm still, even now, I'm still working on like manifest. I don't do it as much as I should with manifestation and all that stuff. But I did it here and there. And like you said, writing out your personality, like writing out like, who are you? As you transition from the old to the new, what are you? What are these energies? And I love how you mentioned like, what your thoughts controlling you and things like that, because that's how I was. And I shifted to like, all right, what can I bring out of me? Like, what's in me that has been just lying dormant for so long? Like, what do I actually want to have presented to the world? Like, what do I see myself as? And once I got over that hurdle and writing things down, and I call it the why ladder, where you kind of like question yourself and then you just answer and you get the answer and you're like, okay, why? Like, why did I answer that? Why did I feel that way? Well, this happened. Okay, why? And breaking everything down between the energy, between the past, between generational pass downs, because
Oh, yes.
that's one of the biggest ones. I recently recorded a couple, I think my 2 or 3 weeks ago, I posted my podcast about that. And I was like, I have this, and this. Why? Came from my mom. I have this, and this. Why? Came from my dad. So once I started to work on all of that and kind of just break everything out, and I literally had like a whole notepad of just like categorize things of like, okay, this is family, this is like my anxiety, this is my own things, this is whatever else came through it. And I broke everything down, and I got to the point where I'm like, all right, this is me. Like, that's the other stuff. That's the outside noise. That's social media. That's external validation that I'm trying to get. That's family. That's whatever it might be. I broke everything down, found myself, and then I got to the point where I'm like, this is me. And like, now I know, okay, this is going to be anxiety. How do I calm myself? Like you said, taking the lessons from a panic attack. And it's like, okay, well, wait, my mind created this insane scenario, like a powerful scenario in a negative way. Well, if it's capable of doing that, then it's clearly capable of doing the opposite. So I can create positive in a crazy way. And I just started working on things like that. And I got to the point where I completely transformed my mindset. And like, I still have anxiety. That's never going to go away in the grand scheme of it. But my life now, it's like, even if it comes up, like I had it the other day and it came up for 3 minutes, and I'm like, okay, yep, this is what we're going to do. Get it away, go about my day. Well, what anxiety? Whereas in the past, the second that anxiety came up, my day was done. Like,
Yes.
that was it. That was it.
The power in learning about yourself isn't that you're not going to have anxiety, you're not going to have a day where you feel down or off. It's about how long are you going to live there? And that's the key. Like, people that I work with are like, oh, well, I still do this. I'm like, okay, but do you do it all the time? Do you do it to the intensity you did it? Is it debilitating you in any way? Yes, you're totally allowed to have bad days. Sometimes the world's shit. Like,
Right. Exactly.
we don't take it personally. And one of my big things is we don't make meaning out of it. Because when we start to decide, oh, I have anxiety because I'm an anxious person, because I always have anxiety, because, oh man, it's just going to ruin my day. And when you start to feed into it instead of letting it almost like an observer pass by, like, oh,
Right.
that sucks. I'm not feeling really great right now. What am I going to do today to turn that around? What am I going to do today to take really good care of myself? How am I going to set myself? If today is just, some days are a wash.
Yeah. No, some days you take. I had it yesterday. I went to do stuff and I was like, I'm just taking the day. That's it.
Yeah. And like, that's fantastic though, that you can recognize that, okay, I'm taking a day. I know that this means that I need to take good care of myself tonight. I need to bring that energy back. Or maybe I've been on social media too much and I'm feeling insecure. So maybe I need to take some time off. Or maybe I've been communicating with this person and I notice every time I communicate with this person, I start to feel bad about me. Yeah. So it's just being mindful and respecting the fuck out of yourself.
Yep.
That you And, you know, like, I think that's all it comes down to is just treating you like you would, like, I had this relationship with myself when I was in my early 20s where it was just like, oh, you're being a fucking depressed bitch again. Like, I had this
Yeah.
relationship that was so toxic for me,
Yeah.
you know, like, whatever.
Yeah.
I had no compassion for myself. I had no
Right.
ability to, like, wow, you've been through a lot the last, 5 years, Nichole. Like, take good care of yourself, grab a bubble bath, let's
Yeah.
have some extra get an extra good night's sleep tonight, let's listen to some music that feels calming. Like, I didn't have
Mhm.
any of that. Oh, you're like how you would with a friend. Oh, you're having a hard day, why don't
Right.
we go, grab some ice cream and just chill out for a little bit tonight.
Yeah.
We don't have that ability to, when you have that relationship with yourself. And I think that's, again, the gift of manifesting for me, is
Yeah.
that I love and accept myself. That's something I write every single day. I love and
Love
accept
that.
myself. And that, again, when we repeat anything, whatever it is, when we repeat
Yeah.
anything, we create a neural pathway, we create attached emotion to that neural pathway, to that thought. And then we start to put that on an autopilot. So instead of like, oh, I'm just an anxious person, no, I'm somebody who loves and accepts myself. I'm somebody who
Yeah.
knows how to get out of anxiety when I am starting to feel it. I'm somebody who has a whole pocket full of coping skills
Yeah.
and needed. So when we start to change the inner narrative because we're good friends with ourselves,
Yeah.
it changes everything.
It's about, I've been preaching it a lot lately. It's, so to me, I get some flack for this because it's also, I was probably in that moment where if you're not open to things, you're going to reject it. So if you don't think the same way, like if I speak about something with positive energy or manifestation, like you or whatever, somebody might not understand that and they might, push back against it because they're not in that space yet, which is fine. We all been there. But for me, I talk a lot about mindset and happiness, like especially with happiness being a skill in a sense, because it really is. Like everybody thinks, in the grand scheme of it, I feel like a lot of people look at happiness and they think material because that's just the way of the world is, oh, I have the house, the car, this and that, I'm happy, whatever. And it's like, no, if you look at society, think about how many billionaires and how many famous people commit suicide all the time. It's like they have it all, right? Well, they're not happy. So clearly that's not the way to happiness necessarily. And I preach that a lot. And because I learned it in myself, where I found that empathy, that compassion, that passion, that happiness for myself first, because that's, like you said, it's, we're our own friend. Like that's your first and last best friend is yourself. If you don't harness that, if you don't build that relationship with yourself, nothing else is ever going to work in the broad spectrum. And that's my biggest thing, that part of what I learned when I went through everything is, why did I have anxiety with relationships? Well, I wasn't loving myself. I wasn't good with myself. So no shit, I'm not going to be as good as I want to be. And sometimes you're in your own head, you're in your own, you're in the relationship and don't even realize it because you're in your own self. You're not outside of it like your partner. So you're putting things out there different. You're putting energy out there that you don't even realize because you're just so used to going with the flow. And that's just how you've been. So like, I got to the point where I did a lot of work on myself. I looked at the energy, I worked on all of that. And I said, no, this is who I am. This is who I want to be. I always needed to date because I didn't want to be with myself. I didn't want to face myself. I didn't want to face what I had going on for all the years. And going through the motion of everything, and literally energy is one of the biggest things because I'm, like I said, I mean, the podcast is named Grounding Yourself for a reason. Like I am obsessed with grounding myself every single day, the energy from the earth. And it's actually funny. Yesterday and the day before, I didn't get outside in the morning and put my feet to the ground. And I started to pick up more on, I'm like, hey, let me think back on days that I felt shittier. Wait a minute. I didn't start my day with getting outside in the sun and getting my feet to the ground. It's like, it's the craziest thing where when you begin that energy shift, you'll notice so many more little things that every other day you would have just went about your day and had no idea.
I had a podcast last week that I was talking with one of my guests with, and we had this conversation about how when you're not coming internally and checking in on yourself and creating time and creating intention and getting to know yourself, because you're like, okay, I need to ground every day. I'm pretty grounded, but I need to clear my energy every day. So, so finding the things that work
Right.
just for for you. But we had this conversation about how the more external I get, like when I'm traveling a lot, it's harder for me to maintain I have a pretty rigid like schedule when it comes
Yep.
to taking good care of myself, right? I have things that I do every day that are going to lead me to my optimal feeling.
Right.
That's what I value in my day is feeling good
Yep.
throughout the day,
Yep.
right? As someone who's formerly depressed, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but the more external I get, the more like caught up in everything else I get, and the less I've come back and been like, hey, what the hell do I need? And being
Mm.
intentional about taking care of myself. So I actually do a bullet journal. I don't know if you
Maybe
do.
not. I don't know.
I have to show you. Hold on, I have it right
Okay.
behind. So I have like a list of things that I do every single morning, unless I'm on, something. But
Yep.
it looks like this, and it is just
Okay.
the activity,
Yep.
the day, and then I make like a little X or check mark. So then I can
Okay.
say, okay, so I fell off Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, but I skipped my meditation.
Okay.
That might be it. Okay, I'm gonna have to
Yep.
like level up on my meditation. Or I felt really good this day. Oh, I was like, hanging out with friends and that felt really good. But I also read A Course in Miracles. That's something I really like to do.
Okay.
So like you can kind of look and see, okay, I had a really great day. What are the things, the components that make a really great day?
Yep.
And then you can duplicate all your great days if you're
Right. Right.
and you don't have to take 5 hours in the morning. You can create some, I know there's Miracle Morning, and I know there's Miracle Morning for parents. I haven't read that one.
Okay.
With different activities to create a great morning for yourself that are under 20 minutes. And if you don't have 20 minutes in your day to yourself, you've got to fix your life.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I mean, fitness, I know that everybody's excuses. I don't have time. And it's like, yes, you do. Like, yes, you do. What are you doing? Oh, you do this for like you sit on Netflix for 2 hours. Well, cut out an hour and you still have an hour of Netflix, but like you can also work on yourself and better yourself. Like that's one of the biggest things is people we find excuses for people will find excuses for everything. Like there's literally an excuse for everything. And that's one of the things, like even me, I was always in fitness and all that stuff, but even that, I didn't really have like a wellness routine. I lifted weights, I ate right, and that was it. But like I just did it because I wanted to look good and whatever. And I didn't even for the longest time, I can look back and say when I felt my best mentally and physically, it's when I did the right things for myself.
Yeah.
But, in that moment, I'm just thinking, oh, I just like working out and eating right and whatever. But when I look back now as I'm older and wiser, it's like, no, they go together for a reason. That's why you felt better because you were just being better. You were treating yourself better. You were treating your body better. Like it all goes together. And I mean, I've had I've had ups and downs, obviously, with everything. And it took me a long time, like I said, to learn. You need to learn that empathy with yourself because if you want to go out in the world and understand the world and understand the energy in the world and everything like that, you need to understand yourself first. Because if you're not giving yourself kindness, you're not going to ever really get it on the same level in society, especially nowadays with everything out there that's going on and social media and like you don't even know what's fake and real anymore in most of the world because if you're just looking at your screen you don't really know what's going on. So many people I could go on right now. I have friends with really nice cars. I could go there and take a picture with it and say, oh, look at this. I can go to a mansion 20 minutes away and take a picture. You don't know that that's not my mansion if I don't say it.
Right.
Like there's so many things in the world and it's so often difficult because we're in our own little bubble to like discern, okay, like what's real and what's not. And I want to, imposter syndrome is one of the biggest things. I've been there where I looked at people and I'm like, oh, like this and that. And it's like, you need to harness that power for yourself, learn what routine works for you, what everything in your life is, like you said, like your bulletin. It's like, okay, well, I didn't do this today. Oh, well, I didn't feel the same. I did this, whatever. And that's starting to do that, starting to put that routine in place. And it's not even just for structure. It helps you, like you just said, it helps you understand yourself more. You get to do something and then you learn, oh, I didn't really feel that great from doing whatever activity it was, being around whatever person it was, whatever it might be. And it's very tricky. You definitely have to be open to learning it because I've had times where I thought I was open and I was trying And I just quickly rejected it. And then finally I got to that point of like, no, I'm open now. Like, let me really dive into all these different things and really open my mind and not push back against things. And I think that's one of the biggest things. So I'm in like anxiety groups and I chat with, people there and try to help. And it's definitely a mindset thing, because sometimes I'll say something and I get a lot of pushback. And then other times I'll say something and everybody receives it. And it's the people that are receiving it. Some people are more open to it, I feel like, than others. So I had one where a guy was like, literally, I don't even know how many fucks he said in his post, but it was just fuck this, fuck, 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 fuck.
Yeah.
And people were obviously commenting saying, yeah, I get it. And I was like, hey, I'm like, let's try to like reframe my mindset, this and that, and like work different. I'm like, yes, anxiety sucks. I've been there. Like it ruined my life. Like it ruined my life for the longest time, according, but I came to a place and I got through it. And I commented about that. And I was like, you got to work on your mindset, this and that. And some people, and I've been there in the past, I don't know if you were like this with depression, but I would talk about mindset and they were like, well, it's not all in your mind. And I said, you're perceiving that the way you want to perceive it. I'm not saying it's all in your mind. Technically, it kind of is, but like, it's your mindset, because you don't want to work on it. You don't want to try and actually put the effort in. You just want to think you're trying. And I've been there. Like literally, I'm like, I've been there. I tried, but I wasn't really trying until I actually tried. Look where I am now. I'm like, I live a life that I actually love. And like, I'm not doing everything I want to do yet. Like most of my dreams aren't even fulfilled yet, but I love every single day. I love myself. I love my life. I love everything around it, because I got to the point of learning my mindset through energy and practice and all of that.
Yeah.
But I learned my mindset, and you have to be open to learning that, because so many people they push back.
You also have to be open to like calling yourself out on your own bullshit, and I think that is one of the biggest parts of even just like any kind of healing, but manifestation too, of just being really honest, because I watch people try to manifest things that they don't really believe that they can have.
Right.
And so I think a bigger part of manifestation is working through, where did this belief even come from? And you talked about generational we'll say generational curses earlier, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But generational mindsets are a conditioning unlike anything else.
Yeah.
Just because it was normal in your family growing up. And so honestly, part of the reason I was dealing with such bad depression when I had kids is because my model of what a mom was this completely selfless, I give everything for the kids are my life person. And I learned that for me, at least, and I'm pretty sure for her, that's not a healthy way to do things, is when you give up your person for people, you're left relying on other people to fulfill you, to feed that energy. And so for me, after having kids, I was like, oh, it's all for them, and nothing left for me. And I wasn't even giving myself an opportunity to have anything left for me until I was so depressed that it was hard to get out of bed. And it got to a point where I went and I sat with a therapist, and she was like, this isn't depression, this is suppression. Who are you? Who do you want to be? What do you want to do? And how do you want to show your kids what that looks like? And I was like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. I thought this is how moms are. Moms don't take care of themselves. Moms don't even need to put on makeup because they, and so I had gotten caught in a version of myself that was not me. And I think honestly, if like just speaking on what I know of depression, I think that's such a big part of it is suppression, not saying what you want, think, or really feel, but also being so far away from who you truly deeply desire to be, which is what I do and why I do it. Because I think that merging where you're at with who you deeply desire to be and letting that emerge through you is the most powerful thing. And just teaching people their own power in that, like, just lights me the fuck up. Like, it just makes me feel so good to show people that, because it's just, I don't know, there's just such, the mind is amazing, but the generational conditioning of who we think it's to be. And I remember when I had my daughter, I continued school. I had her in my first year of getting my bachelor's degree. So I had gotten my associates. I had her in my first year of my bachelor's degree. So I was still going to school. I was like, it was really hard, but I had my mom tell me I should be, taking time off of school so that I could be a better mom. So I had just like this like guilt. I had professors who did not want me in their classes because they thought that having a
Wow.
newborn would deter me from being able to finish the work. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so I had not only like this internal pressure, but then I had like society everywhere I looked, and
Yeah.
that was manifestation, right? We know that when we deeply believe something, that we start to see that
Yeah.
resistance that you were just talking
Yeah.
about in our external environment. And I was getting hit with every angle that like you shouldn't be doing anything for yourself or working on yourself while you're also a mother.
Wow. Yeah, I actually recently, I think I posted a TikTok on it, but I was listening to a podcast and they mentioning like, be yourself, live your life for yourself. Like, what do you envision for your life? Not what and they literally said, like, not what your teachers say, not what your parents say, not what your friends say, like, none of that. And like you said, in the moment, you're manifesting the negative. So
Yeah.
you're seeing the negative. And that's one of my biggest takeaways for me is when I started learning more about energy manifestation and all of that. It's like, yeah, you were always so pessimistic. Everything always looked so shitty to your life because you were the one causing that. Like in the granted, some things are out of your control, whatever. But like when you're just so stuck on one way or the other, and that's your mindset, everything is negative. Well, yeah, everything you come across in your life, for the most part, guess what? It's going to be negative because that's just your mind. The second, and I actually said this to somebody, and it's funny, where I saw everybody as an asshole, which Massachusetts can be. I mean, you're in New York, so like you know, there's a little bit, but it's crazy that the second I became positive, the world around me became positive. Like I don't even need to explain it. It's literally that simple. And some people won't get that because they're not in the moment yet. But when you reach that moment, life is super simple, and literally it's all in your head in that sense where you make up your world. Like everybody, and I said this, I love saying this, where your reality is only as deep as your own perception. Like whatever I see as reality is my reality, and whatever you see as reality is going to be completely different because it's your reality. So if you see things as positive and I see things as negative in the same exact picture, that's our reality. So it's like once I shifted that mindset and that energy, that's where my life changed. Is the second I saw everything as a positive and a chance to go in that direction, life became easy.
That's the most true thing I've heard all day. It really, it's so funny because I was talking about generational passing down, right? But I do have somebody in my life, in my family, who is just the most negative person. And it's so much more blatant now that I've healed a lot of parts of my negativity. And I will never pretend to have all my shit together.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't.
no, never.
Anybody who claims they do, please run away from them. Like when
Yeah,
people are like, I'm healed now, I'm like, yeah, you're gonna come up with something else that you're still, it's like hilarious. You're always working through it. But like I'll
right.
see somebody in my family who has like this crazy negativity, and bad things are always happening to them, but they also are feeding into it, expecting it. And so one of my favorite affirmations that I use every single day is everything is always working out for me. So I know that even when something looks like it's not, that it still is. And that I don't have to get worked up and feed the negativity of it and fall into the, oh my God, this is going to go really badly.
Mhm.
But I can say, no, I know this must be part of the everything is always working out. This must be leading to
Yeah,
that, working out for me, because
yeah,
then you can kind of, you create your manifestation around
right.
creating opportunities and doors. And I wrote a ton about this in my first book, Rock Your Soul, about like why we like, what is our perception? Why do we see what we see? And our brain is so powerful that when we tell ourselves these things like, oh man, I have the worst luck. I hate when people say that. If you're saying
Yeah.
that, cut that out of your,
Yes,
cut that out.
please.
But if you're saying that, you're saying I have the worst luck, and that says tells your brain, it's like a Google search bar. If you type it in, it says, okay, I'm going to look for places I'm unlucky.
Yeah,
What you seek, you will find every time. Now, if you switch that around and you say, okay, everything's working out for me, more and more things work out for me every single day.
yeah,
Every single day, things just kind of fall into place. And when that starts to become a normal conversation in your head, and you're saying that more and more, your brain is going to look for ways that it works out.
yeah.
And it's really freaking cool when you
Oh
start to
yeah,
see how the universe is literally shifting in your favor. So this shit could work out for you
yeah,
because you decided it could.
yeah. No, one of my favorite affirmations is I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that, like, I used to go through things and I'd be like, I would try something, right? I have an idea, I try it, it fails the first time or whatever, because I was still kind of pessimistic, even though I wanted to try it. So it fails. Oh, that's it, I'm done. Now I get to the point where I'm like, no, everything's a lesson, good or bad, like it's all a lesson. So if I really want to do this thing, whatever it is, and I'm trying it, and something, difficult, tough, whatever comes up, it's there for a reason. Like it's a teaching moment to get me to the next step to where I'm supposed to be. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be for a reason, because I'm supposed to be getting this negative feedback. I'm supposed to be getting this test. I'm supposed to be getting pushed a little bit more in this certain thing, whatever it is, because it's all for a purpose to get to that bigger picture every single time.
And acceptance is like the greatest neutralizer for any of your energy or emotions. So instead of like fighting it, I know you were talking about a breakup earlier, and when we're like, oh, I don't know why they broke up with me, and like, and you're going through all of the scenarios, and of course that grieving is normal, but when you're going through all of the scenarios, you're fighting what is. And when we sit down and we say, okay, I don't know why this happened, but I accept that it has.
Yep.
You neutralize all the energy. You stop fighting yourself. You stop building it. And so I know through some of like the hardest times of my life, that was my default. I don't know what's happening here, but I accept that it is. I don't know what I'm going to do from here, but I accept what it is.
Right.
And you can kind of decide from there. But yeah, acceptance is one of the most powerful tools that we have in our back pocket when we feel like we're fighting our thoughts, when we're fighting the world, when things aren't going our way, instead of feeding into them negatively, because our training and our history might tell us that that's what we do.
Right.
But we start to decide, okay, I don't have to fight it. I don't have to battle it. I don't have to prove shit to anybody. I accept that this is occurring, and I trust that the universe or God helping and taking care of it. And I always come back to prayer, like prayer, affirmation, same thing to me.
It's the same thing.
Same thing. Prayer and affirmation, like when I write manifestations, I write it as a thank you note to the universe. That's how I manifest every morning. I have a manifestation journal, and I write, dear God, angels, universe, forces of my highest good, whatever you believe in, right?
Yep.
And I write for my day. I write for my mood. I write for my mental health. I write for my relationship with my kids and health of my kids. I don't do everything every day, but I do cover the things that are the most important to me. One being my energy level.
Yep.
I love writing for being energized and productive, because I know that makes me feel good. And so if you can identify the things in your day that make you feel the best and manifest those, like if the world ends tomorrow, if you just had a really good day today,
Yeah.
Like I'm all for having goals and setting goals, but like I said, I got to my master's and I graduated and I hated it.
Right.
So like I'm all for goals, but what about every single day? Like, how do you want to show up? How do you want to live it? How do you want to feel throughout it? And I think that's such a powerful, it's so powerful to be thinking about, how am I going to make my day really fucking special?
Right. Yeah, no, 100%, because at the end of the day, only you only have yourself. Like, you matter. Like, that's it. If everything, like you said, if the world ends tomorrow and you were, God forbid, but like your family was gone, everything was gone, but you had yourself still, well, then what? You still have you have to harness that power from within first. It's always going to be you. Nobody's ever going to love you as much as you can love yourself, in a way, I guess. Like, it's that simple. All right, so you kind of already mentioned it a little bit with grounding. Let's round it out. We can end with this kind of two-part question, I guess. Is, I know you talk a lot about manifestation and writing things down and all of that, so I kind of have an idea on the answer of this one. But one, what would like your one grounding method be like? Whether whatever that looks like for you, and then two, what kind of wellness routine do you have as a whole? Your nutrition, do you eat certain things? Do you work out at all? Like, what does those two things look like for you?
Okay. So grounding for me, I'm a big, put my feet on the earth. Like I just go sit out back, sit on the porch. I'm like earth energy. I actually also have a grounding mat. So it is a frequency it puts into the wall. And for me, I like being a little ungrounded. I like Because for me, like that energy of
Yeah.
intuition pulls me up. So a lot of people who are
Okay.
really, really anxious benefit from grounding because they're too high out of their
Yeah.
physical body with their spiritual body. So grounding actually, like when I think of grounding, I think of it sinking your spiritual body into your physical body. So I
Okay.
also just love a good walk in the morning. I go for a
Yep.
lot of walks. Like that's my hot girl walk season. But that's actually one of my
Love
favorite
it.
things about living in South Carolina is because every morning it's so beautiful here. I can go for a walk every day. So for me, putting my feet on the earth and walking. But my wellness routine, I have to move my body every day. It is a energetic requirement for me. So even if it's just stretching, that is something I need to do. I have a Peloton. I used to do really, really intense workouts. I loved Beach Body, 80 Day Obsession.
Okay.
That was my jam. But I think I was a little too hard on my body. So this last year, I've been trying to reform my relationship with my workouts and doing more intuitive workouts rather than. So I also do aerial silks. That's something that I really love. That's
cool.
a passion of mine. But so working out every day, manifesting every day. That is something, even if I don't have time to sit and write to the universe and have that time. I love to read like 10 minutes every day of just the self-help, self-development book, because if we're thinking about energy and we're thinking about being intentional of our energy, pulling from the energy of somebody who is kicking ass, like that's an instant level up. Like I'm reading Ed Millett's new book right now, and
I haven't read any of his yet.
Oh, he's so good. But he has so much more masculine energy, and I'm really feminine in my energy. So like for me to pull masculine energy, I'm like, let's fucking go. Like I'm ready to do all the things today. But those are the big three. But yes, I'm really big. I've gotten better with nutrition over the last year, 2 years.
It's the toughest part. It's the toughest part.
I honestly eat the same thing for breakfast every single morning because it makes me feel really freaking good. And I know that. And so I have it like pretty much ready to go in the morning. I just pull it out, get it ready to go, and it's easy. But yeah, so nutrition, especially for energy and especially for my intuition, is if I eat like crap, not feeling intuitive that day. I feel sluggish. I feel tired. I went through this whole health journey over the last year where I met up with a functional physician. So they run really serious, like in-depth panels of blood work and put some, prescribe some supplements. And I don't have any issues with Western medicine. I think there's a time and place for all of that. But for me personally, I've watched people get addicted to pain pills. I've seen some scarring from Western medicine or some surgeries that I don't know if they really needed to happen, but now the person's kind of jacked up. So like, I just had this like aversion to going to a traditional doctor. And I think if I would have been on like 20 different pills because I have really low blood sugar issues. And some thyroid stuff that's based out of a gene mutation, which is really interesting. I don't know if you've heard of I call it the motherfucker gene. It's MTHFR.
I might have, in passing on reading, I might have.
So I have that as a gene mutation, which is not a big deal at all, but it impacts like 30% of people. And it's your body's inability to properly detox. So even if I'm producing the right stuff, it's not, my brain isn't telling it where to go. So by fixing that detox issue, it's changed everything for me.
I can imagine.
And again, that was literally one supplement. And it balanced out my blood sugar, my thyroid. I just swear by functional medicine on a whole new level. So my big things are energy, working out, meditation, manifestation. I don't meditate every day. That's just transparency.
Same.
I try to at least a couple times a week get a good 10 minutes. And I have like one of my favorites. I have like an energy clearing one that I love. It's a guided meditation that I love, but I'm really dedicated to my internal work, and that's something that's non-negotiable for me.
Makes sense. Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like that's another thing too, is we don't necessarily like do a focused meditation, but I'm sure you can, just by telling how you are, you still probably meditate in some way throughout. I mean, you can meditate while walking, like just even having that, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I tell people is I'm like, listen, I was the biggest person who said, I'm not meditating. Like, no, I'm not sitting there like this until I learned like, oh, I kind of already meditate in a way. Like, yes, you have the moments where you can sit there and be still and just let things come and go, which I typically try to do it almost every day. I jump in the sauna after I work out at the gym. So I'm like, I have nothing else to do here. Let me, I'll throw on a sound and listen to that for the 15, 20 minutes. And usually I'll meditate there, but not every day. And like you said, and even if I don't, it's when I walk, sometimes I'm not thinking about a thing. I'm just walking and something comes up, I let it go and that's it. So you can meditate. Doesn't matter how. So I'm sure you still meditate every day.
It will, and like, let's just demystify meditation, because I know that the like history of it is that you sit in the proper position and meditation is really just the moment where you're so focused on the present, you're not focused on the past, like, or like, it's just being in the present moment. So if cleaning, a lot of people with cleaning, it does that. Working out, people feel meditative. During sex, people feel meditative. Like, there are a lot of things where people are just fully in the present moment, where they lose time and space. If you have anything that makes you lose time and space, that's your meditation. Art, drawing, coloring, like that. But yeah, it's easier than we need. Like, we just need to stop overcomplicating
everything.
Things be easy.
Everything. It's everything is so overcomplicated. Like, once you learn that too, and you're like, oh shit, everything's simple. It's like, yeah, it really is.
Just live and be happy. Crazy. Just live and make each moment intentionally happy. And that's kind of good, right? But yeah, so that's my goal in life, to demystify and simplify for people. I just, even in the spiritual, I got into the spiritual world and I was like, oh, you have to do this. And then you have to address your shadows. And then, you have to do this. And, it's just a bunch of bullshit. The reality is that things will work for you if they work for you. If they feel right, you do them. If they don't feel right, stop forcing them.
Just because Samantha down the street says this is how it goes doesn't mean it's going to work for Nichole. Like, it doesn't matter.
And like, if you come back within and you just say, okay, does this feel good and right to me? If it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And then we move on.
Love it.
Thank you so much for listening to the Rock Your Soul book and podcast. Take a moment to book a one-on-one session with me or purchase my trainings at NicholeEaton.com. Join the Rock Your Soul Facebook group or follow me on Instagram at NicholeEaton.xo. And if you loved this podcast, don't forget to share it. Thank you.